So Elon Musk dropped $1 billion on Tesla stock. Let's see how the media and some analysts react.
Elon Musk purchased about $1 billion in Tesla stock on Friday. He made the move after Tesla's chair spoke with Bloomberg Tech's Ed Ludlow about the merits of a potential $1 trillion pay package for Musk.
The board's responsibility is to look at who the CEO is for the next period of time. And we believe that Elon is the right CEO for Tesla over this transformative period of time. And our view is he's a generational leader. There aren't any other people out there like Elon.
Let's get straight to Bloomberg Tech's Ed Ludlow. Ed, again, the timing interesting here. What was the decision and why do we think Elon Musk did this?
Yeah, I mean, the market's seeing it as a really positive signal that Musk, from the other side of the negotiating table, is saying, yeah, I kind of buy what Robin Denholm's saying. Like, I'm feeling positive about this. You're feeling positive about this. It's the first time that Musk has bought stock on the open market, but I'd note he did it through a revocable trust, and he did it on September 12th, the same day as that conversation, the first time since the beginning of 2020. Remember, in 2022, he was a net seller of about $20 billion worth of shares, but that was the year that he acquired Twitter, now known as X.
Yep, so important point here. 2020 was the last time Musk bought Tesla stock, and almost certainly the last time he actually had available capital to buy Tesla stock. The acquisition of Twitter, now X, was extremely expensive and required the selling of quite a bit of Tesla stock. However, since then, let's see what's happened here. Shit canned 85% of the dead weight at X, formerly known as Twitter. Company is now massively more profitable. Then starts XAI, leapfrogs the whole industry with Grok. Then XAI acquires Twitter, aka X, all-stock transaction. Next minute, the guy has created many hundreds of billions of dollars of value outside of Tesla in those last few years, meaning, as I record this, quite clearly Elon Musk has access to additional capital that he didn't in the last couple of years. Now, for those of you who don't really understand where does Elon's money come from, once you get to a sufficient dollar amount of assets, e.g. ownership in certain companies, you can set up what's known as an asset-backed line of credit or a stock-backed line of credit, essentially a gigantic ATM where you can borrow against the value of your assets. Now, this does carry risk. You're only allowed to borrow a certain percentage value of the total value of your assets, right? And then, of course, there's a risk if the value of those assets that you've borrowed against collapses, that the amount you've borrowed might exceed your limit. So you have to be extremely conservative when setting up an asset-backed line of credit. For example, let's just say, hypothetically, you have, pick a random number, $420 billion of assets, ownership in companies that you've founded, created, grown, acquired. Maybe a lender will allow you to borrow up to 10% of that value, which would be $42 billion. But you're not insane. You're not going to risk borrowing exactly $42 billion, the full limit, 10%, because if the value of those assets were to crash, let's say they all get cut in half, now suddenly you're now at 20%, which is double your limit. You got a problem. You're going to be forced to sell at the worst possible time. So you're not going to borrow that much. Maybe you decide, if my limit is 10%, maybe I'll go as high as 2% or even 1%. Still a few billion dollars. This is where the capital has come from. Musk doesn't get paid a salary at Tesla or SpaceX or anywhere, but he does have the ability to borrow against his assets. And obviously, at the time of the Twitter acquisition, Musk had either reached his threshold or at least his sleep at night factor in terms of how much he was willing and or able to borrow against his existing assets, hence needing to sell some Tesla stock. But since then, the guy has literally created hundreds of billions of dollars of value, XAI, the turnaround of X/Twitter, blah, 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 blah. And so the point that I'm making is, if this trend continues, this may not be the last time that Elon Musk nibbles off a very small amount of Tesla stock. Just saying. After all, he now knows that the 2025 Tesla Performance Award requires Tesla to roughly increase to an $8.5 trillion market cap. He's going to have a pretty big say in that happening. Maybe he sees this as a no-brainer investment. But of course, Elon Musk obviously a retard and a dumbass and doesn't know anything about Tesla and is a really bad investor and doesn't know how to create value. Therefore, just because he's buying Tesla stock at these levels doesn't imply that it might be a reasonable opportunity. Ahem.
He needed the capital and the cash. So there's a long way to go on this still. Remember that shareholders will vote on that package on November 6th. And it was really difficult on that conversation Friday. And actually, I've kept phoning investors to get a sense of where they sit on it, because it's not universal that they feel that the structure of it, the way that Elon is required to hit mandatory targets, is a good thing or not.
Now, from Bloomberg to CNBC. Let's see what they have to say.
Straight days of gains for Tesla, and our next guest doesn't see that rally ending. Let's bring in Paul Sienna, head of technical research at BofA Securities. Paul, so the technicals suggest to you that this stock still has room to run from here.
Absolutely, they do.
Now, for fuck's sake, the technicals, gee, are we really starting this way? I'm sure the technicals told everybody that Elon Musk was going to be buying Tesla stock on Friday too, right? But I swear, if this segment is predominantly stocks astrology, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Let me skim the timeline here. Let's see. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm looking, and the titles on the bottom here, the technical take on Tesla, key technicals. Yeah, no, fuck this, bro. I'm not going to amplify this intellectual excrement. Sorry, not sorry. But fear not, if you're hoping for a nice dose of CNBC, there's more coverage. Maybe this will be a little bit better.
Let's now bring in a Tesla shareholder, CNBC contributor, Sandhills Global Advisors, Brenda Vingello. Brenda, this is a scenario where a lot of folks have been looking for some kind of catalyst for Tesla to resume a sustained trend higher. Is this the one?
I think it's one of many catalysts that are out there, but I think it's definitely a great vote of confidence. I mean, there was so many questions about whether Elon was really focused on Tesla for a period of time and whether the work that he was doing with the government was really damaging to the brand. And of course, that came in the backdrop of a tough moment for EV sales. But I think if we look at some of the announcements, I mean, this is a company that isn't standing still. They're still innovating. Just last week, talked about a new utility scale battery configuration that should make it faster and more cost effective for that to be implemented at the utility side. Elon also talked about the next generation chip for cars that will be 40 times better than the current chips being used. And then lastly, we also have learned, it's going to be up for vote at the upcoming board meeting later this year about whether or not Tesla should invest cash into XAI. And from my seat, I certainly see a lot of people clamoring for exposure to private companies, especially the larger private companies out there. So I do think that that is going to be of interest for a lot of shareholders to be able to gain exposure to that part of Elon's companies as well.
Can confirm, at least at a reasonable valuation, I am strongly in favour of Tesla investing as much as they feel comfortable in XAI. And this is not a new thought. In fact, I've aired this very idea basically from the moment XAI was announced. I'm not kidding, by the way. The receipts are all over X. XAI first announced, I post this and had noticed on the XAI website, they wrote relation to X Corp. We are a separate company from X Corp, by the way. Spoiler alert, no longer true. They have since merged. X Corp as in X as in Twitter. But we'll work closely with X, Tesla, and other companies. I explained at the time, Tesla's real-world data stream plus X's real-time language stream, which includes text, images, and video, equals the ingredients for AGI, adding that no one else had all the ingredients of the same quality, if they had them at all. More on this. Jason DeBolt, Dave Lee, and Elon Musk all getting involved in the potential of XAI and Tesla partnering. I added my own thoughts, again, doubling down on what I'd already said. Tesla investing in XAI is a no-brainer of no-brainers back in November 2023. If you want your mind blown, I challenge you, go look at how much XAI was valued back in November 2023 versus its current valuation. And just imagine if Tesla had invested back then. I also asked my audience on X, November 2023. I asked my audience if, in principle, they supported Tesla investing in XAI, and just about everybody voting yes. Just over 6 months later, I asked, how much should Tesla invest in XAI? And obviously, $6.9 billion is the correct and only possible answer. Elon Musk at the time had asked, should Tesla invest $5 billion into XAI, assuming the valuation is set by several credible outside investors? Obviously, board approval and shareholder vote are needed, so this is just to test the waters. In response, obviously, I said yes, and can we do $6.9 billion? Musk responds. So this has potentially been brewing for well over a year. In fact, let's call it 2+ years. Taken much longer than I would have liked. However, don't really care about what's already happened, but whether it still makes sense. And Tesla shareholders will collectively make that decision later this year.
Brenda, are you, as a shareholder, concerned that Elon Musk is not as focused on Tesla as he should be, given all of those other private market obligations and everything else in his kind of ecosystem? Are you worried, or as a shareholder, do you feel like this is a way to really keep him engaged in Tesla?
Well, I think this has been a question for a long time, right? I think back to even the days when he was buying Twitter or trying not to buy Twitter, and that also was a very distracting period where shareholders really questioned his focus on the company. But it was even at that time that he had an analyst event and really showcased the breadth of other layers of management at Tesla. So I do think that he has the title of CEO, but maybe his role at the company is not really what we normally think of as a traditional CEO. So I do think he's hired good people to be in place to manage the business. I think he's certainly personally excited about a lot of the innovation happening there. But sure, as a shareholder, would we like to see him a little bit more focused on the company? Absolutely. I do think this announcement of his purchase of another $1 billion or so of stock is a great effort to show that he still cares, although relatively speaking, it's a small piece of his overall share of the company. But nevertheless, I also think it helps temper some of the concerns about his pay package, which is also a bit controversial and will be voted on at the upcoming board meeting.
All right, Brenda, while we have you here, because you are in the heart of all things kind of Silicon Valley, can we talk about two other names in the news? Between Alphabet...
Yawn. A comment from a Tesla stock analyst, Jed Dorsheimer, who wrote, quote, "With Musk's purchase, combined with the upward momentum for delivery expectations and Robotaxi rollout, we are becoming more bullish. This purchase is Musk's first buy since 2020. And again, I would add, this is essentially the first time he's had the financial capacity to actually be able to buy. So it's not like he decided now's the right time to buy because I could have bought any time over the last 5 years, but now's the time, as much as he's now got access to capital. And what has he elected to do with that capital? Bought some Tesla stock. It's almost like every time he has a spare cent, he buys Tesla or Twitter. The note continues, "To us, this sends a strong signal of confidence in the most important part of Tesla's future business, Robotaxi. Although I would argue Optimus is the most important part of Tesla's future business, but Robotaxi a distant second." Let's continue. "We recently participated in a meeting with Tesla's board of directors to discuss the details of Musk's performance package. The board is confident of its position in the Delaware case and anticipates a verdict by end of year. It does not expect a similar situation to occur under new Texas jurisdiction. Musk has the board's full support, and we expect he'll get more than enough shareholder support for this to pass with flying colours." And I personally suspect this is the case. I mean, how retarded would you need to be as a shareholder of a company that's offering a purely performance-based compensation package to the leader of the company that requires for the very first tranche the value of the company, aka your investment, to double, and for the final tranche the company to have increased approximately 8 times, not 80%, 8 times to $8.5 trillion. How much of a moron would you need to be if you are invested in that company to vote against a compensation package that is contingent upon massive increases in the company's valuation in tandem with massive increases in performance? E.g., Tesla needs to sell 20 million vehicles. That's one tranche. 1 million robotaxis, 1 million FSD subscriptions, 1 million humanoid robots. I mean, hello. You'd have to be brain dead to vote against a compensation package that is entirely performance-based and directly benefits you as a shareholder. First tranche, the company's valuation doubles. The final tranche is up not far off 10 times. You'd have to be brain dead and so desperate to virtue signal that Elon bad, if you still believe the one true narrative, e.g. your heroic pension fund, then you want to signal to all of your clients that you know the current thing is Elon bad and therefore no, billionaire bad, Elon bad. And then of course voting against that carries with it an enormous amount of risk because you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders. And voting against an entirely performance-based compensation package, I mean, I'll tell you what, I would not be risking that. Now, I could be proven wrong, but my hypothesis is, despite the fact that there are a small number of totally brain-dead virtue signaling drones out there, the overwhelming majority of Tesla shareholders are not retarded, are not so desperate to signal that they believe the one true narrative, which is Elon bad. And I also suspect that this compensation package, the performance award, will pass with flying colours. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs.